Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am here for a bit of a lighter video. My apologies for my absence last week. We had a family emergency here, so I just needed to take that week off, relax, and get myself back on track. So today, my lighter fare to get myself back into the swing of filming is going to be the mid-year book Freakout tag. I don't know about you all, but I almost always feel slightly panicked when I look at my TBR in the best possible way, because I always look at it and go, oh, I have so many wonderful books that I want to read, but where on earth do I start? So what I liked about this tag is that it not only got me looking forward to more books that are going to be coming out and surely added to this pile, but it also got me thinking about the wonderful books that I have read this year and where I would like my reading to continue based on those results. So let's dive in. So what was the best book you read so far in 2021? Honestly, I couldn't think. I've read so many wonderful books, but I took a look at my reading log, and the books that I rated highest this year so far were Working on a Song, the lyrics of Hadestown by Anais Mitchell, A Countess Below Stairs by Eva Ibbotson. Yes, this was a reread, but even so, one of my favorite reads. A Passage to India by E.M. Forster, and The Other Bennett Sister by Janice Hadlow. The next question asks, what was the best sequel you've read so far this year? And I didn't think I'd read any sequels because I really don't read many series anymore. But then I realized I'm in the middle of one that I'm really enjoying, which is Rilla of Ingleside by L.M. Montgomery. This is the 8th and last book in the Anne of Green Gables series, which I have been trying to finish for many, many years now. This one is Megan Hannett's favorite over at Megan the Story Girl, and I can definitely see why. It's a wonderful continuation of Anne's story. Question 3 asks, what's a new release that you haven't read yet, but that you want to? And one that has been definitely playing on my mind recently is The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. This has come highly recommended from Marissa and indeed my neighbor Kathy, so between the two of them, I can't wait to read this book. It sounds like everything I will love. Linguistics and language creation, 19th century Oxford, and gender playing into language creation and indeed the creation of the Oxford English Dictionary. What more could I want? Question number 4 is, what are your most anticipated releases for the second half of the year? And again, there are so many wonderful books that I am looking forward to. Most are historical fiction, such as The Forgotten Kingdom by Signe Pike, which is the sequel to The Lost Queen, which I loved back in 2019. Circus of Wonders by Elizabeth McNeil. I loved reading The Doll Factory last February, so I'm very much looking forward to her next book. Mrs. England by Stacey Halls. I loved The Familiars, and The Foundling is here on my TBR, so I can't wait to read her new book. Cecily by Annie Garthwaite. I haven't heard as much about, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's the story of Anne Neville, wife of the Earl of Warwick, known as the Kingmaker during the Wars of the Roses, and indeed mother of Lady Anne, future wife of Richard III. You get to see the War of the Roses from her perspective, which sounds fascinating. I can't wait to read it. And finally, A Net for Small Fishes by Lucy Jago. This sounds wonderful, and I know Simon at Savage Reads loved it. And it is the story of a female-female romance in the court of James I. I don't need to know any more than that. It sounds wonderful. Yes, this has been released in the UK, but here in the States it won't be released until November. After all that hype, question 5 asks, what was your biggest disappointment so far this year? And I would have to say that was Hidden Sea by Gregory Maguire. Marissa from Blatantly Bookish and I tried to buddy read this back in January, and both of us ended up DNFing it. It sounded like something we both would love. This is meant to be the backstory of Herr Drosselmeyer from The Nutcracker. That sounds wonderful. We were both really intrigued, being lovers of ballet and indeed the Nutcracker's story. But up to a third of the way into the book, there were still no signs of how our main character was going to become Herr Drosselmeyer, not even the slightest hint. It was very strange, it was very dry, neither one of us were enjoying it very much. And I'm very sad. After hearing such wonderful things about Wicked and all of his other fairy tale retellings, I was really looking forward to reading Hidden Sea. But it just didn't work for me, and indeed that experience may have pushed Wicked a little further down my TBR. On the other hand, what was your biggest surprise so far this year? And that for me has to be Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. This is a webcomic which I had never read before. Well, sort of. I had read Check Please starting in 2018 and loved it, but I had only read them as physical books. I never checked the website to see each weekly update. So overall, I was a little bit skeptical of webcomics, I have to admit. But I stumbled across this one due to an Instagram ad. I never thought that would happen. And I started reading it one day, and next thing I knew, I was 30 episodes in. I could not stop reading it. It is a wonderful retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth, and dips its toes into all kinds of stories from Greek mythology, while dealing with really wonderful modern topics, such as consent and rape and the aftermath and the nerves of first relationships, childhood trauma, going to therapy for the first time, sibling rivalries. All of them are done so brilliantly. Each of the characters' personalities are spot on and leap off the page. They are so, so wonderful. And luckily, we will be getting physical bind-ups of these comics starting in October. Question 7 asks, what is your newest favorite author? This could be a debut author or just an author that is new to you. And of what I've read so far, I would have to say one of the newer favorite authors that I've acquired is E.M. Forster. I had read one of his books before. I read A Room with a View back in 2014, and I enjoyed it, and I found the style super intriguing. I loved the story, but that's about where I left it. I never continued reading his work until this year. I picked up A Passage to India in January and loved it so much. The way that it looks into race relations on both sides of the issue of the British rule of India, and the way it treats all of those characters, and the way it allows you to get into everyone's heads without realizing that that's what you're doing, is so fascinating, and I just loved it. Similarly, Marissa and my friend Jonathan and I buddy read Maurice back in March, and it was also beautiful and wonderful. So I am definitely on the lookout for more of his work in the future, because of his 3 greatest works, I have loved them all. Question 8 asks, who is your newest fictional crush? And I have to say I don't have one. I am loyal to the end in most things, and in this case as well. My fictional crushes have not changed since I was a teenager, so they are still Mr. Knightley, Mr. Tilney, and Jamie Fraser. Question 9 asks, who is your newest favorite character? And I have to say, it is Anna from A Countess Below Stairs. Yes, she wasn't entirely new to me, as I did read this back when I was in university, but I hadn't read it in so long that I rather forgot who all of the characters were and exactly what they were like. and I fell in love with Anna all over again. Anna is a Russian countess until the Russian Revolution happens, which forces herself, her mother, her brother, and their old governess to flee to England, where they must work for a living and make a new life for themselves. This throws everyone except Anna, who is determined and fiercely loyal and hardworking and utterly charming. Every one of the characters falls under her spell, and so do you as the reader. And this just goes to prove why I love Eva Ibbotsson's books. Question 10 asks, what is a book that made you cry? And here again, I have to say none. I rarely cry at books. In fact, I don't think I've cried at a book in several years. So this is not to disparage any of the books that I've read. This just goes to illustrate me as a person. On the other hand, a book that made me happy was definitely The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow. I loved getting the opportunity to dive into Pride and Prejudice again, but still with the opportunity to read an entirely new to me story. I loved the way that Janice Hadlow interpreted all of the characters that we know and love from Pride and Prejudice, and I thought the new characters that she introduced afterwards fit in with those original characters just beautifully. This deserves all the hype that it's been getting. It is a truly wonderful retelling. Question 12 asks, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year? And there have been a couple really beautiful books, but I think the most beautiful so far would have to be Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. The American edition is nice, but this UK edition is just stunning. The foiling there, the spine is lovely, and then those end papers get me every time. Plus, it smells so good. And finally, what are some books that you need to read before the end of the year? And my answer to this is too many. There are so many books that I am excited to read. I'm already planning all of my TBR for Jane Austen July next month. There's Victober again this October. I'm excited to finally start reading the Capitán a la Triste series by Arturo Pérez Reverte. And indeed, I have to finish 4 more Shakespeare plays to have finished his entire complete works. And those plays are King John, Timon of Athens, Titus Andronicus, and Two Noble Kinsmen. So there you have it. Thank you for letting me gush to you about some books that I have read and that I want to read. Let me know down below if you want to know more about any of the books that I have mentioned, if you have other books that you have loved and think I should read before the end of the year. I make no promises, but I'll try and work them on my TBR. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.